Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. So here I have an Inspiron 15 7000 series, specifically the 7570, that I bought directly from Dell for about $920 with an extended warranty. This machine's actually for my dad, but I'm just going to be making a review on it because I've been setting up quite a bit. So to start off on specs, it's got an 8th generation Intel Core i5, that's an 8250U. You can choose various options. This one's a 1.6 gigahertz quad core. And what's great about that is that it's only a 15 watt. It doesn't take up very much electricity, so your battery life should be fairly good. Now, it is a 4-core 8-thread, of course, which is pretty standard for CPUs nowadays. Intel hasn't really broken away from a 4-core 8-thread in a while, but it's not a bad CPU for a not super expensive laptop. It also comes with 8 gigs of DDR4 2400 MHz memory, and 1 out of 2 slots being popular, so it's very easily upgradable. That's my cat, sorry. And it has a 256 gig solid state drive, this configuration that is. It's a Micron 1100 SATA SSD to be specific, and that actually shares an M.2 slot with the PCI Express option for an SSD. So you can only have one or the other, you can't have both. And it also has a 2.5-inch unused hard drive bay if you want to add a little bit of extra storage. Mind you, I did notice that you cannot put a thicker laptop hard drive in there. It needs to be a very slim model. It has a Nvidia GeForce MX130, that's a 4 gig GDDR5 graphics card, also known as the GeForce 940MX, I believe. Again, not really a gaming GPU, but it can do some newer titles reportedly on low, medium settings. Now the display is a 15.6-inch 1080p IPS True Life, they call it LED backlit display. I'd say it definitely has pretty good color, looks good. I'm not going to get into super nitty-gritty specifics of, GTG response times and things like that, but overall it does definitely look pretty solid for a laptop monitor. It comes with 802.11ac Wi-Fi, that's 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz, so it's dual band, as well as Bluetooth, of course. Windows 10 Home 64-bit, so it's not Pro. You don't get the extended features of Windows 10 Pro, like being able to add it to a domain or remote desktoping into it, but that's okay. 65 watt AC adapter because it really doesn't take very much electricity at all, and this came with a 2-year on-site in-home service. So to go over just a general feel of it, it's definitely pretty slim and sleek. I do like the design. It's not bulky, it's not too big. I personally am a fan of the 15.6-inch displays. I think 17 is a little bit too large for my personal taste. One thing I did notice though is that you do have to open the screen with 2 hands. You really can't do it with just one because it's too light. You just end up flipping the entire laptop up by itself, like this. It does have a keyboard backlight, which is pretty handy. Definitely good for typing in the dark. And the keys don't have a super large amount of push, which is actually kind of nice. That's the way I like it. I'm not really used to the more mechanical keyboards, but it's really just a matter of personal preference right there. Now I also noticed that there's only a small fan eject in the back. It doesn't go out the side or anything, so it does get a little bit noisy when you're working the CPU a little bit more because it has to work pretty hard to get the air out of there, but a lot of laptops are like that. It's not like a jet engine quite so much, but it could be a little bit quieter. The trackpad's also fairly good. I noticed that a lot of PCs actually have horrible trackpads. My $1,300 Lenovo is a great example of that, but the trackpad right here is actually pretty usable. It's, your finger doesn't stick to it too much, doesn't slide too much. You can of course tap the click or actually click the buttons here, so it's definitely pretty usable. I also noticed that the battery on the bottom isn't removable. You can't just pull it right out. It's built into the laptop under the cover, so swapping that out wouldn't be the easiest thing. Now as far as ports go, you've got an AC port, of course, for your adapter. You have a USB-C with DisplayPort, which is actually really awesome. I actually have a couple of Dell docks here, including a WD-15 that can plug right into, and I can actually get multiple displays out of it. The dock itself does have some limitations, but I can get 2 1080p monitors working just fine with keyboard, mouse, gigabit Ethernet, all those things. So it's definitely awesome to have this option for using a dock through this without having to spend the extra money on a business-grade laptop with a snap-in dock, which is fantastic that Dell's allowing more home users to break into the ability to have docks. HDMI, a couple of USB 3.0 super speeds, combination headphone and a microphone jack. And then on the other side here you have your little locking port, Ethernet, gigabit of course, another super speed USB 3.0, and an SD card slot. So as far as performance goes, it is definitely pretty zippy. A lot of laptops nowadays come with standard hard drives, which is really not super great. I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to run an operating system off of just a hard drive. I think the ideal configuration is to have an SSD as a boot drive and then have a hard disk on the side. And the sets of an SSD as a boot drive, I'm pretty sure you can configure it with a hard drive on the side and a spare 2.5-inch bay, which would be perfectly ideal. Now, the SSD does do pretty good benchmarks. If you choose the PCI Express SSD, you're going to get something even better than this, but the SATA SSD pulls around 520 megabytes per second read and about 450 write sequential, which is pretty good. That's about what you'd expect from a SATA SSD, and more than fast enough for the average user. Now comes the boot test. And of course the SATA SSD does make it pretty zippy. There you have it. So overall, I am definitely impressed with this laptop. It's slim, it's sleek, it's fast with that SSD, it's upgradable with that RAM slot and the hard drive, which is a huge benefit over the newer Mac computers, and I think it's really just a solid consumer-grade laptop. If you're a gamer, of course, and you want something that can play the latest titles at the best frame rates and best resolution, you're probably going to want to spend the extra buck and get something with a beefier GPU. But if you're just a consumer who's looking to spend a little bit of money on a solid laptop that will last more than a year or two, I definitely recommend it. So hopefully you found this video informative and useful. If you liked it and you want to see more, please do consider subscribing, and thank you for watching.